So I had a really neat experience in that my midwife is a Mennonite. She's from the Mennonite community, but she's been practicing and delivering babies for over 30 years.
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth, rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share homebirth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year. From the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall of Rooted in Eden Private Contract Association,
And me, holistic doula and birthkeeper Brooke Collier of Sister Birth.
to choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all your decisions unto the Lord.
And to reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has already called good.
Please remember, birth is not a medical event, but a natural process. We are not your care providers, and this should not be taken as medical advice.
Welcome to the Holy Wild Birth podcast, sisters. This is Brooke here, and I am excited to have you all hear this episode that I recorded with Tori. Tori's a mom of 4, and it was just her 4th baby that was born at home. And when Tori set her mind on having a home birth, she found her way to a midwife from a place that she didn't expect or see coming, but who ended up being just such a gift and a blessing to her and her family. And I think you'll just really appreciate hearing about the ways that God met Tori in this birth, both in the way that he lined up her midwife for her and in the way the birth itself unfolded. So it's a simple and very sweet birth story. Hope you'll enjoy. As we dive into today's birth story, just a reminder that the choices and beliefs of the mamas sharing their stories here are as individual and varied as the storyteller herself, and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or recommended actions of Lauren and or Brooke. Tori, hi.
Hi, hello.
Hello. I'm really grateful that you agreed to do this with me today.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Good. Yeah, we're gonna have fun. So you've been in the Natural Christian Home Birth Facebook group for quite some time, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
yes.
I can remember seeing your posts leading up to and following your last birth.
Yes.
And I'm really excited that you're gonna tell that story for our listeners today and for me.
Yes, I'm excited to share.
Yeah. Would you like to tell the listeners just a little bit about you first?
So I am Tori. I just turned 30 years old in September. I'm a homeschool mom of 4. I'm the wife of a youth pastor. He is the youth pastor at the church that I've gone to my entire life. I grew up there. Um, the pastors have been in my family. Many of them have been. So it's really neat that God put us
That's
in.
unique. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So it's very neat to be raising my kids in the same church that I grew up in. So yeah, I've kind of been on a journey to finding my, natural birth ever since my first was born 9 years ago. And yes, I think joined the group even maybe before my third was born because I've wanted this for so long. And
Oh,
it just
wow. I
wasn't.
didn't realize that.
Yes, I might be wrong, but I know it's been a very long time because I learned so much about home birth and natural birth and implemented that to my third hospital birth. So,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Taking the home birth like elements into the hospital.
Yes. Yes.
Good. Yeah. All right. So yeah, you said this has been a journey since about 9 years ago when you had your son, right? Your firstborn's a boy?
No, my first is a girl and then 3 boys.
Okay,
Yes.
girl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, fun. So let's have you tell a little bit about your first birth and second and third,
Okay.
kind of like in a high level summary way, and then we'll really zero in on in more detail that fourth birth, which was your first home birth.
Yes.
So
Okay.
start us
So
out in 2009. I think you said it was.
no,
No,
it was
9 years
9 years
ago.
ago, but yeah,
Yeah.
2013. Yes. So my daughter was due on the day before Christmas Eve. So you can imagine how an OB felt about that.
Mm-hmm.
So and at this point, I really had not educated myself at all on, I was just trusting everything my doctor told me. Nobody I knew personally really was into natural birth or talked about it. So, when he told me on my due date that I had low fluid and I needed to go to the hospital and be induced, that's what I did. Um, Come to find out, he did not want to be in the hospital on Christmas Day. So, I went in and it was, textbook. I was induced the second my contractions started. They offered me medicine and I got morphine. And as soon as that wore off, I got an epidural. And thankfully, everything, she was healthy, I was healthy. But I did get an unwanted episiotomy, which
Mm,
at that point, I honestly, until it happened, didn't even really know what that was. Um, so that was home
sure.
birth with Haven. And then all of my babies are right at almost 3 years apart. So with my second, Rowan, I went into labor spontaneously with him and with Haven, I was 40 weeks and 1 day when she was born. So with Rowan, I went into labor with him at 39 plus 4. And I've always been pretty like 100% sure of my dates. So I'm,
Mm-hmm.
tracking cycle and all of that stuff. So with Rowan, I went into labor, and it was immediate. There was no, I never noticed a Braxton Hicks. It was no like slowly leading up to it. I laid my head down at midnight that night, and all of a sudden I felt this. It felt like he kicked me in the cervix, and all of a sudden contractions started. And
Wow.
I think that kick may have been my water breaking, but it didn't, nothing came out in that moment. I think it might have resealed a little bit or something. And I didn't notice it until we were in the car on the way. So my husband was sleeping, and I'm getting our bags ready and thinking, I don't know, I've never been in spontaneous labor before. So I called them and they said, go ahead and come in. Well, they started coming so fast, we didn't have time to drop my daughter off anywhere. But thankfully, my mother-in-law, she lived right next to the hospital, so she met us at the hospital. And Haven was in the room with us for a good probably 30 minutes before my mother-in-law came and got her. But the nurses are whizzing around the room looking at each other like, "Oh no, oh no." And after the birth, they told me we were scared because we knew you didn't have time for an epidural, and we didn't want to tell you that. Um,
Mm.
and then, I was like, it was weird to me that they weren't just upfront with me. But I did end up, they offered me an intrathecal, which just, took it's like an epidural, but immediate, and it's just one shot instead of an IV.
Oh.
So it was enough to have the effect of an epidural. And at the time, I always said, "Oh, I didn't get an epidural this time. They just gave me something and it took the edge off." I didn't really realize what.
Sure.
So, what natural labor really felt all the way to the end. So, he was born 3 days before 40 weeks, and that kind of just got me started on my journey of, wow, like I made it farther than I thought I could. And
Mm-hmm.
I started, doing a lot of research. And so with my third Rett, I wanted so badly. I wanted a home birth, but my husband wasn't quite on the same page yet. It wasn't really in our finances. I wasn't in a place where I felt comfortable enough to do free birth. So and I didn't fight him on that at all. So we went into it and I told my OB up front when I went in, I told them, please do not even offer me medication. Please, just let me do my thing. And they were kind of sassy about it, but they did, they did honor that. I got a couple, well, since we're going au natural, do you want to skip this and skip this? And I said, actually, I do. Thank you very much.
Good.
So, I actually, with Rhett, I went in for a non-stress test because I was 40 weeks on the dot. And my OB really wanted me to get this done. So I went in and I told them I had a little bit of bloody show that morning. And they checked me and I was like 5 centimeters. And they said, well, you should start walking and you should just walk around the halls for a while and see what happens. And so I did. And sure enough, I went into labor. Um, they did tell me, if we admit you and then you stop progressing, we're gonna have to start Pitocin. And I looked at her and I said, no, you're not.
Good for you.
Yeah, so and that went, for as far as hospital births, it went really well. There was um one thing I did forget to mention with Rowan is that I did ask them not to give me an episiotomy, and he did anyways. This OB,
Oh
he kind of
no.
he kind of at the moment said, "I'm just gonna snip you real quick," and before I even got to say anything, it was already done. So there's two births with stitches, and so then with Rhett. I didn't have my OB for my delivery. I had to have an on-call doctor, and she came in, and I don't believe that she gave me an episiotomy, but I did tear. So then there was birth number 3 with stitches, and I was not excited about that. But otherwise, it went pretty well. So then when I got pregnant with my fourth, it was kind of from the beginning. I had been watching birth videos with my husband and talking about all the possibilities. And so from the beginning, we kind of decided this was the direction we wanted to go. So
Great.
that's kind of where we got here.
Wow. It was an interesting progression listening to that summary of your hospital births, how you went from kind of completely just like going with the flow and not like really thinking or asking questions to a little more like thoughtful, and like then to like, I really wish I was doing this at home, but since I can't, I'm going to make it as home like at the hospital as I can, to
Yeah.
now your home birth. So
And
it
there
was kind of like a
even
slow
was,
stepping stone process.
yes. And even part of that was there was a baby in 2018 we lost due to a subchorionic hemorrhage. And
Oh,
when I went into the same OB that I had had for my first and second. They gave me the unwanted episiotomies, and the whole time, he had been very, well, if it happens, it happens. He didn't want to tell me to be on bed rest or keep an eye on it, and he was very, he just didn't have a whole lot of empathy or compassion.
yeah.
And as he was okay with my pregnancies previously, but when the baby did pass, he basically told me, okay, we need to schedule a D&C right now. It needs to be done before the end of the week. And I said, I don't like that option. And so I found this other OB, and she worked with me, and I was able to deliver that baby at home. And,
Mm,
we were able to go see her and visit her, in the
yeah.
cemetery when we want to. And that kind of was just the beginning of me being like, you know what, I can advocate for myself.
Yeah.
Um, so
Thank you for sharing that vulnerable part of
yeah,
your story. That's tender.
yes,
But yeah, so your first home birth was really that one.
yes, in my bathroom all by myself, and it was one of the
Mm-hmm.
most precious. It's one of my most precious memories. So,
Yeah.
seeing for myself that it was a girl, and just being
Hmm.
able to hold her and take a few pictures that I could keep. It's been, I thank God all the
Yeah.
time that I was able to have those moments with her, because I know that if I would have just went with the D&C, I would have never had that. So,
Mm-hmm. May I ask how far along you
yeah.
were?
Let's see, she passed at 14 weeks, and I didn't deliver till 16 weeks. So,
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty far along. So that's why you could see that she was a
yeah,
she. Oh,
yes. And we had been to the hospital
yeah.
many times due to bleeds from the hemorrhage, and they said, yep, she looks fine, heartbeat's good. And then I went for a follow-up
Mm.
2 days later, and her heart had stopped beating. So, we were really kind of shocked that after all that trauma, and they kept saying, "Yep, she's doing good, she's doing good," and then all of a sudden she wasn't. So
It's
it
so
was very
difficult.
hard, but God really used that to draw me closer to Him as a mom, through pregnancy and birth. I can really see how it's been used. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
crazy.
I find
I
that to
think
be true, that like it seems like Jesus is especially near to women during miscarriages. I've heard that
yeah,
so many times, and I've experienced it myself as well. There's like that special closeness. Um, and the question comes up a lot in our Facebook group, and also just people private messaging me of like, if I'm having a miscarriage, do I have to go to the hospital?
hmm
And so I'm glad you brought this up. And just this total side note, but no, you do not. Almost ever. You don't need a hospital for a miscarriage any more than you need it for a full term live birth in
right,
most cases, right? There's like things to keep an eye on. And if those things happen, you go seek help. But it's really good for women to know that they can have that sacred experience in their own bedroom or bathroom at home with
yes,
their baby that was born still. And that can be actually such a wonderful way to integrate the experience and connect with that baby,
yes,
and not have it be this sterile medical procedure that, I mean, a DNC rips apart a baby to pull it out, and like
yes. And that's all I could think of.
yeah.
I would never be able to hold her. I wouldn't be able to take her body and bury it the way that we wanted to, and I just couldn't. I couldn't bear that. That was one of three miscarriages I've had, but that was the only one where I was far enough along to be able to see her, and so that was very important to me.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, yes,
Oh, so she was part of your catalyst for seeking out a different way for
yes,
your full term live births.
yes.
So, how did your husband, because this is another thing that comes up all the time, so I thought it'd be fun to ask you, because he wasn't on board at first and then he was. What do you think for him helped him move like across that line into, yes, we can do a home birth this time?
I think him seeing me be able to give birth completely with no medication, no intervention in the hospital, and I told him if I can do that strapped to my back on their doing everything by their rules, I know I can do it in the comfort of my home with people that I trust. And so and we've kind of been together in this, journey of doing everything more natural. What that be with like the health choices we make for our kids or how we eat in our homes that we weren't raised,
Mm-hmm.
doing as kids ourselves. So he kind of was just a little bit behind me, because I spent a lot more time immersing myself in, birth videos and education and reading and all that I could. And then also one of the biggest things, it was just the cost because we are a one income family and oh no, it's okay. Got a little guy
Mm-hmm.
waking up. We are a one income family, and it just, most midwives in my area are around $4,000 to $5,000, and it just wasn't something that we could see fitting at that time. And so, come here, buddy. I we found a midwife who charged much, much, much less, and then it's like all of a sudden all of this was lifted off his shoulders, and he was like, you know, we were praying about it, and it just gave us so much comfort. So that's how we got to that together. It's
That's
okay.
awesome. Just growing together, and it wasn't like this big argument of like having to convince or persuade. It sounds like it just
Right.
kind of,
Yes.
he evolved like there,
Yes.
like the Holy Spirit maybe worked on his heart as he was working on yours.
Yes.
That's ideal, right? Like ideally we don't want to have to like try to strong arm our husbands into things that they don't
Right.
feel good about. Um, yeah.
Because
So
then
good
when
for you for doing that well.
yes, right. Because then when you're in birth and if they don't agree with what you're doing, then there's tense,
Hmm.
and that's what you're trying to avoid in the hospital at home. So
Great point. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so you're moving into this fourth pregnancy on the same page. Super excited because you get to have a home birth. And what
Yes.
did your prenatal care look like? And who did you choose to attend you or to like walk with you through your pregnancy?
So I had a really neat experience in that my midwife is a Mennonite. She's from the Mennonite community, and I found her through a Facebook group. She's not on Facebook, but someone else who had used her in the area recommended her, and so I got a hold of her. And she's not a state certified midwife, but she's been practicing and delivering babies for over 30 years. And she helps out at a Mennonite midwife clinic in my area where there is a certified midwife. And so she kind of just helps there, but she also sees women outside of the clinic on her own. So that's
Cool.
what we decided. I did go to a couple ultrasounds that just she asked if I would feel comfortable with that, and I said I would. So I did go to one to confirm in the beginning, and then a anatomy scan at 20 weeks, just at the OB. But otherwise, everything else was with her at
Great.
the clinic.
That's unique too. I think there's I don't know what state you're in. I can't remember, but
Missouri.
Missouri. Okay, I wonder if you
Hmm.
have there what we have here in Michigan, which is there's like a religious loophole kind of for midwives where like you don't have to be licensed if you are like a midwife serving a religious community. So like the Mennonites and the Amish here don't have that
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
requirement on
I'm
them
not
for
sure about
licensure.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, she is very careful about, who she decides to work with and everything because of that and, liability and all that stuff. So, there were a lot of, we kind of had to interview each other to decide that we were a good
Absolutely.
fit. But, yes, her name is Emma, and she is such a good friend to me now. I love her so much, and I'm so thankful that we were able to meet
Hmm.
each other. So,
Gosh, I love that. I love how midwifery
yeah.
leaves space for friendships that go past the birth to
Yes.
form. Like that doesn't happen with an OB. It just doesn't.
No. And it was really interesting because I would see her at the clinic for my appointments, and every time I ever went, I was the only one there who wasn't a Mennonite. So, it was really interesting. I think they were all like, "What is this lady doing here?"
So she must not serve a
So,
lot of non-Mennonite women.
I
Must
don't
be
think
a little
so.
less common.
Here or there, she only takes on maybe one due date per month, so she doesn't see a ton of women per year, anyways. But yeah,
Huh, that's cool. Hooray for the non-certified midwives who are just doing their thing,
yeah,
following Jesus, helping babies be born. We love it.
yes.
So, was your prenatal care with her? Did it involve some standard tests and like measurements? What sorts of things happened at your prenatals?
So we did run some labs, um, but other than that, all she would do, she would use a Doppler, which she asked if I was okay with, and I said yes. And then she would measure fundal height, and then we kind of just would chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she would just ask me how I was doing. She always was recommending vitamins or um, all sorts of different natural things that they use in their community with pretty much
Hmm.
every pregnant woman. So yes, it was very laid back.
Yeah. Oh, I would have loved to hear the traditional Mennonite like remedies and protocols for pregnancy. That's really
Yeah.
fun. Hmm. And was it a pretty easy, straightforward pregnancy without complications?
Yes, and I typically pretty typical for me outside of the hemorrhage with the one pregnancy. I hardly ever have morning sickness. I've never had issues with blood pressure. Every single week she'd look at me like, "Your blood pressure is perfect. How is this possible?"
Good job.
So, so yeah, I everything went smoothly. We never had any issues. And I loved I feel like with my OB appointments, I would be like, another OB appointment every, near the end where it's every 2 weeks and she did see me on the same schedule, but I looked so forward to it. I loved going to see her. Um, it was really a joy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think half the beauty of midwifery care is the prenatal stuff.
Yes.
Because the paradigm for it is so utterly different, right? And you've gotten to experience that firsthand. It's relational and it's holistic. It considers like you as a whole person. There's like time taken and education given on how to be well in every sense. And that is what sets you up to have a home birth that is straightforward and safe, is because you feel safe and you have been prepped to do the things that need doing in order to set you up for success in that situation. And you're with somebody that you trust. And all of that matters so much, that prenatal care.
Yes.
Hi, baby. I just
say
see him.
Even
hello, home birth baby.
As a side note, too, one thing that I loved so much was being able to involve my 3 older kids. Living in a post-COVID world, I would have never been able to even take my kids with me to the OB. And, then there's finding childcare while you go to your appointments, and just having them so involved, and it kind of prepared them to be there for the birth, because that was something that we wanted so badly, was to have them to be present for the birth. And so going to all of those appointments and listening in on all of our prep, I really think it made a difference for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so great. All right, so how did your labor start and when?
So, let's see. I was 2 days late. I was 40 weeks plus 2. And something with my midwife, because she's not certified and she's very, very careful, she told me from the beginning, and I agreed and I was okay with that, she was only really comfortable with me going to 41 weeks. And from the beginning, I was kind of like, well, I never go that late anyways, so it's not, no big deal. So we got a couple days over 40 weeks, and I was starting to get to the point where I was like, I never wanted to do anything to try to move my labor along. I always wanted it to start on its own. But more than that, I want to have this birth not in the hospital. I just so greatly wanted to be able to, and I think if I would have gotten to 41 weeks and it seemed like I was getting close, she wouldn't have just, she wouldn't have just been like, oh, I'm dropping you. But I did decide to ask her after I had done, as we do, way over researching, and just ask her how she felt about castor oil. And, it's funny because I had done all this research and I had all of these women's opinions buzzing around in my mind and experiences and all of these things. And I kind of expected for her response to be similar. But when I went to her, it was like, no big deal. Like, oh, yeah, I've done that before. Like, we could try that if we need to, if we get to it. I think that's something that's so interesting. As a Mennonite, she doesn't have Facebook. She doesn't work in some big network of midwives, or, she doesn't have all of these opinions and, buzzing around in her ear like we tend to have sometimes. And she told me,
great point.
She said, there's a way that I have recommended in the past to take it. And I've never, in my 30 years of delivering babies, I've never had a woman have adverse effects from it. And so a couple days in, I was like, I'm really nervous that, and there will always be that part of me that wishes I maybe would have waited a few more days. But at the same time, I can tell you my experience with it went so well that I thank God that I did decide to do, she recommended to do it in a shake with peanut butter, and I also added a raw egg for protein. And I never once had a single adverse effect from it. I never,
And your body responded to it pretty quickly?
Yes.
Did your body take it up and like, we like this, let's run with this?
Yes. So I think I drank it at like 8 or 9 p.m. It was a Wednesday night, and he was born by 6 a.m. the next day. So,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
so I started, and with my 3 babies that have not been induced, they have all been right around 6 hours from start to finish. So all 3 boys have been the same. So, I started having contractions, and, for months and months and months, I kept thinking, like, I've never really had Braxton Hicks before. Is that what I'm feeling? Because this was the first pregnancy where I really experienced them, and I knew, like, it was different. And so, I was feeling them, and they started getting closer together, and I felt bad because my husband had just laid down to go to sleep. And it was probably about midnight when they really started picking up. But I finally woke him up, and I was like, I think it worked. I think I'm in labor. So he got up and immediately started airing up the pool. I called my mom, and she was so excited. She was at my house within 10 minutes. So
That's awesome.
It did work out perfectly in that I went into labor in the middle of the night. My kids were able to sleep through most of it, and then we woke them up near the end so that they were able to be there. And it progressed pretty quickly. I remember in the past being in the hospital and all of the nurses looking at me like they've all told me that they think that I must have some high pain tolerance or something, and I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
My mom has said the same thing before too, but it all was so, I had done so much research and looked into breathing techniques, and I had, prayer. I was covered in prayer. I was listening to worship music, and it just could not have gone better. I really don't think so. You got something to say? So it was moving along very quickly. We did call Emma, and she came over with one of her cousins, I believe, another midwife. And I don't remember exactly all the times. I feel like I was so in labor land that, I wasn't paying any attention to times. But I was able to get in the water, and it was so, every contraction I came out of, I saw someone praying for me, or I caught some lyrics from the music that was playing, and it was just so encouraging. And it really helped me to be able to move to the next, just to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And and it's so funny because preparing for this birth, I thought, no matter what, I am not going to be in any way, shape, or form on my back. I want to be on hands and knees. I want to catch him myself. And that, in the moment, just did not feel comfortable. Every time I tried to get on my knees or lean forward, it just didn't feel right. And so I wasn't obviously laying down in the pool, but I kept just defaulting to leaning back on the little step that's in the pool, holding my husband's hands behind me. And I just ended up staying that way because every time I tried something else, it didn't feel right. So, and I also said that I absolutely did not want coached pushing. No coached pushing. And then that ended up being the way that she did it so helpful to me to be able to focus. But it wasn't, like it is in the hospital where they just tell you when they want you to push. It was obviously, it was on my terms, but then she would kind of help me to focus. And then the only thing about my birth that I look back on and I think, man, I wish that would have been different. I wanted so badly to feel the fetal ejection reflex. I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited, and I never felt it. And my midwife told me afterwards, she said, I've had 9 births and I've never felt it either.
Interesting.
Yes. And I mean, he was like about to come. I mean, he was right there, and it didn't feel like that feeling that that is always described, of it's almost like throwing up, but from the other end. Yeah. It's just like this thing that just happens, and that never happened for me. And my water didn't break until very, very, very close to the end. And I actually did ask her. I said, I feel like my bag of waters is holding me back. Every time I push, I feel like it's holding me back from making as much progress. And so I asked her to break it for me, and she did. And then it was fast. He the head was out, and I think she was expecting to like wait a little bit, but not long after he was completely out. My poor daughter, she was in the corner crying because she didn't want to see me in pain. And I felt like I was as calm as I possibly could be, but she could tell I was getting, down to the very last moments where I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. And she wears her emotions on her sleeve. My boys were both there at the edge. They were ready. They were so excited. And she was just a little emotional about it, but they called her over and they said, Haven, you better get over here. And there he came. And then she started crying again because she was so happy that he was here.
Beautiful girl. She must be really empathic.
Yes.
Or empathetic. Yeah.
And there are so many pictures that we have of the birth that my mom took of her sitting in a corner praying. She was praying for me. And I will always cherish that. That means so much to me.
It's so awesome. That's so beautiful. Oh man. A couple of things are sticking out to me that I just kind of want to like reflect back to you. One is you mentioned that anytime you would look up, you would be somebody praying for you or a worship song with lyrics that were hitting you. And it just strikes me as a reminder how important the atmosphere is in our birth, like the atmosphere that the people bring, as well as like the music in our surroundings, because I bet your people didn't even have to say anything to you a lot of times, but just looking up and knowing that they were holding you in prayer and that they believed in you, like, right? Just that silent presence of believing, praying people. Yeah. It makes a really big difference.
Yes. And it's kind of funny. I kind of wondered if my midwife would have anything to say, because, Mennonites are very, very, very traditional about the music that they sing and everything. But she made a point to say, the music that you had, it was all so, it was contemporary Christian music. She said it was all so lovely and so encouraging. And I've never attended a birth like that. And I thought, wow, like that really meant a lot to me. And I'll never forget the song that was playing right as he was born was His Mercy is More. So that song just makes me want to bawl every time I hear it.
I love that.
But yes, this was a whole new experience for me as far as the atmosphere. It made a world of a difference in making me feel so comfortable, so calm. Just everybody was waiting on me. Things were on my terms, not the doctor in the
Yes.
And that was the most amazing feeling.
Yeah. I'm also struck by the fact that you had kind of, based on your research and things you had been learning, like you were saying, you had this kind of list of things that you were like, I don't want this. I'm not going to do this. And probably for good reasons, right? Like they were thought out, like kind of guidelines for yourself. But then in the moment, there was a few things that you found yourself changing your mind about, like reaching out for something different than what you had said you were going to do. And I just think it's important to point out like that's okay. Like that's okay to do that.
Yeah.
We don't have to feel guilty about those last minute changes in decision, because the point is not that you like make a dogmatic like list of rules for yourself when you have a baby. The point is that you follow your body and your Holy Spirit infused intuition and let it lead you where you need to go, not like following rules. Otherwise you might as well be in the hospital following their rules. So your story is just a really good example of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's the point, right? It was your decision. You were changing your own rules because in that moment you knew that's what you needed.
Yes.
And to me, that's what an empowered birth actually is. It's that you're in the driver's seat, listening to the Holy Spirit and calling the shots, even if it means changing your mind.
Yes. And I absolutely love that. And that was something that, I reflected on afterwards. Things didn't go the way that I had seen it play over in my mind a million times over, but it still was wonderful. I felt the Holy Spirit every step of the way. And and it just was beautiful. And I was so thankful that my kids were able to experience that. My mom, this was the first time I had ever had my mom with me for a birth. So it was a blessing. And so one of the best things to me about this was, I had gotten out. There was quite a bit of bleeding in the pool. So even though that was another thing, I really wanted to stay in the pool and birth the placenta in the pool. But there was quite a bit of bleeding, and she really wanted to monitor that. So she asked me to get out. And it didn't take long. There's some pictures I have they're like shoving chocolate covered coffee beans in my mouth, because she said in their practice they always give some sort of chocolate to help the placenta come out. That's something that
What?
yes, that's something that they do in her Mennonite community. And so
I have never heard that one. That's very interesting.
She said she usually brings like some kind of chocolate bar or something to every birth, and she forgot. And I said, well, I have chocolate covered coffee beans in the other room. She goes, that's perfect. So so I got out, and I was laying on the couch, and she was observing everything, and she said, "You know what, Tori, you don't need any stitches. There's no tear." And I just knew after 3 times of getting stitches, I just knew I was just going to have to. And that was an interesting thing with her, is that she told me from the beginning, I don't do stitches. If you need them, you'll need to either go into the hospital or come into our clinic, and you'll need to pay our other midwife to do them. And so I just knew that was going to be the case. And when she said that, I cannot describe the emotions that came over me. I just started crying and saying, thank you, Lord. Praise God. Because that was just something that I had been praying about, but, obviously showing some doubt.
Yeah.
But that, it's all I've ever known is part of recovery from birth is stitches, tears healing. So it was so amazing to me. And it was, I can't even describe, it felt like such a weight was lifted off my shoulders when she said that.
I bet.
Yes. So that was.
Oh, that's great. I love hearing that. And again, that's like the difference between the mother-led pushing and movement and positioning versus not, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you didn't have somebody down there with scissors cutting you. So
yes, because in my birth with Rhett, I remember reading in my notes that something about when he came out, they said they heard a pop, so they wanted the pediatrician to check and make sure his shoulder was okay. And in her wording, she blamed it on me. She said mother moved up the bed, and I heard a pop as the baby came out. When really it was more like she was so hands-on with everything. Excuse me. So that always really stuck with me, that I was like, she's trying to put this on me. But
weird.
Because I don't remember that instance at all of, me moving up the bed right when he was born at all. So, and my husband doesn't either. He said that's not how that happened. But his shoulder ended up.
Well, and furthermore, even if you had moved up the bed, that doesn't break a baby's shoulder.
Right. Yeah.
Or like that's not a thing.
Yeah, it's like if I had chosen to move, that's my prerogative. Like, So,
yes. Women move when they're having babies.
Yes. So in this birth, I was able to move however, I wanted, and it was just life-changing. It was a game changer.
That is awesome. I'm really happy for you that you got to have that like full circle redemptive kind of awesome birth. Like your other births weren't like terrible. It's just that this one took it to this next level of like this is what it's about, right? Like this is what it's supposed to be. Yeah. It sounds like.
There were always things that I took from the previous ones. I feel like that's what brought me on this journey. I could do this a little different. I could do this a little better. And it, all brought us to this. So, I often
so
say
great.
I so wish that all 4 of my kids could have been born by home birth. But I also know that, things happen the way they happen for a reason. And I'm thankful for every lesson that brought us to here. And I'm thankful for every experience. So, yes.
That's a great perspective. Yeah. God wastes nothing. there's nothing in our experiences when we're walking with the Lord that he wastes
Yes,
or
right.
can't use, and so keeping that posture of gratitude for that, like you are doing, is inspiring. He's so busy and wiggly.
Yes.
I wish y'all could see him. He's so cute. Oh. Oh, hi, bud. Well, that's a great story, Tori. Thank you so much for sharing it. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about your postpartum too? What was that like?
Everything was really great. That's another thing about the differences is, they cleaned up and within 2 hours they were gone. And, we were just there to relax in our home and enjoy our new baby. And one thing that was interesting when looking at my placenta, she was looking at it and she said, I can almost tell that you had COVID at some point by looking at this, because there's these calcifications that wouldn't have normally been here with a placenta at your point in pregnancy. And I thought that's kind of interesting, because I wanted to keep it and teach my kids and let them look at it, and so we kind of had a little lesson there. But postpartum was great. This was definitely my easiest recovery by far. I just, obviously the not having stitches made a world of a difference. And just having her, a text away, which that's something. She is a Mennonite, but she did have a phone and a car.
Well, isn't it Mennonites do? I thought they were different than the Amish in that way.
Well, in our area,
or maybe I'm wrong.
In our area, there are lots. Like most of the Mennonites in our area are horse and buggy. So that was kind of one of the first things that I asked.
Like, how do you get here? Do you come on a horse?
Yeah, because she definitely would have not made it in time. So yeah, I mean, just having her a text away to, anytime I had a question or, anything, she was right there. And she came to see us the next day. And then we went to see her at, I think, 2 weeks and 4 weeks and 6 weeks or something like that. So it was great. I loved being able to just chat with her anytime I needed something. But, it was just worlds different, because there was no going home from the hospital. There was no, any of that, having to worry about any of those details. And it was awesome.
Yeah, and to have within a text's reach, somebody who cares about you and knows you, checking in on you and your baby, and making sure you're both thriving, right?
Yes, because I can remember with my OB births, it was either call and wait all day for a call back, or, Google search all day long trying to find answers, or, so yeah, this made such a difference in my confidence. Even it being my fourth baby, there are some things I feel like you almost forget with each baby until it comes up with the next one.
Yep.
And then it feels new again. So, yes, it really was a boost in my confidence to be able to know that I had her in my corner,
Absolutely. So great. All right. And okay, so how do we wrap this up? I think, did you have any, if you were talking to somebody who, like you, had maybe had a hospital birth or two and was thinking about making the change for their next birth, what would you want them to know? Or what would you suggest they do first?
I mean, I know that, a lot of times we can do too much research, but I really do feel like just immersing myself in everything I could birth, trying to glean experiences from everyone else. And then the other biggest thing is that so many times when we're afraid to go for it, it's because we're afraid that our bodies won't work the way that they were meant to. We're afraid that we won't be able to handle it. And I just wish I could go back and tell myself back then, even in the hospital, you were made to do this. And that it's so much more than handling it. One, we have to give it to God, obviously. And in the beginning, I was taking that all on myself. What can I handle? What can I do? And then, but once I gave it to God and I realized that it's so much of a mental game, so much of it is mental. And it's when you have to look at it as, not one big picture of labor and delivery. It's, every contraction, every, if you can make it through this one, you can make it through the next one. Those are the biggest things that I think I learned, just advocating for myself and believing that Jesus can get me through it, because this is how he made my body to do this.
Yes, preach. That's great. Well said. Thank you for that.
And I would say that one of the big things that I learned was just to be open to, the doors that God might open for you that you may not have expected. I would have never in a million years imagined myself working with a midwife from a Mennonite community, because, so often, we just think about, we come from two different worlds and those worlds don't often mesh together. But it did in this case, and it ended up being so beneficial, and it was a blessing. And I'm just thankful for the person who introduced me to Emma, even though I didn't know her well, and just the fact that she was open to working with me and to caring for me. And I'm very thankful that we were able to kind of two worlds collide.
Yeah, and you probably never would have thought to I should go search out the Mennonite community for a midwife.
Right, exactly.
Right? That was probably on your radar, but
No.
God highlighted her for you, and
yes, and ever since
it's been a lifelong blessing.
I've been able to, all the time in the Facebook group, there are women saying, I don't have a lot of options around here. And I've been able to say, hey, it might be worth a shot to check the Mennonites in your area, the Amish in your area, because now that I have been in that place, I've actually met a few others who have worked with Mennonite midwives. So it's just an avenue that we may not know is available, that may be available to many.
Yeah, great point. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, of course.
All right. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast, and we'll let you get back to your sweet little busy baby.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I think he's reaching the end of his rope, huh?
Yeah, he is. I recognize that. Good. Well, again, thank you so much, Tori. Do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you, if you're comfortable with that? If you have an Instagram or something, or a website or anything that you would like them to have.
Yes. Instagram is tori.christian. And then I'm open to any new friends on Facebook, just under Tori Christian. I love having friends of the same like-mindedness to encourage each other. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.